The 1980s may have been a time of big hair, spandex, and pop music, but there's another trend that is closely associated with that decade: Satanism. But was the satanic panic of the 1980s just a form of mass hysteria, or was there something darker and more supernatural lurking in the shadows of the neon lights? While 80s teenagers were shouting at the devil, the question parents were asking was, is the devil shouting back? The Satanic Panic is a moral panic consisting of over 12,000 unsubstantiated cases of satanic ritual abuse starting in North America in the 80s, spreading throughout many parts of the world and persisting today. The panic originated in 1980 with the publication of Michelle Remembers, a book co-written by Canadian psychiatrist Lawrence Pasdarand and Michelle Smith, which used the controversial and now discredited practice of recovered memory therapy to make claims about satanic ritual abuse involving Smith. The allegations, which arose afterward throughout much of the United States, involved reports of physical and sexual abuse of people in the context of occult or satanic rituals. Some allegations involve a conspiracy of a global satanic cult that includes the wealthy and elite in which children are abducted or bred for human sacrifice, pornography, and prostitution. Nearly every aspect of the ritual abuse is controversial, including its definition, the source of the allegations and proof thereof, testimonies of alleged victims, and court cases involving the allegations and criminal investigations. The panic affected lawyers, therapists, and social workers who handled allegations of sexual abuse during satanic rituals. Allegations initially brought together widely dissimilar groups, including religious fundamentalists, police investigators, child advocates, therapists, and clients in psychotherapy. The term satanic abuse was more common early on. This later became satanic ritual abuse and further secularized into simpliritual abuse. Over time, the accusations became more closely associated with dissociative identity disorder and anti-government conspiracy theories. Initial interest arose via the publicity campaign for Pasdar's book Michelle Remembers, and it was sustained and popularized throughout the decade by coverage of the McMartin preschool trial, a daycare sexual abuse case in the 1980s. Symptom lists, rumors, and techniques to investigate or uncover memories of satanic ritual abuse, or SRA, were disseminated through professional, popular, and religious conferences, as well as popular talk shows, sustaining and further spreading the moral panic throughout the United States and beyond. In some cases, allegations resulted in criminal trials with varying results. After 7 years in court, the McMartin trial resulted in no convictions for any of the accused, while other cases resulted in lengthy sentences, some of which were later reversed. Scholarly interest in the topic slowly built, eventually resulting in the conclusion that the phenomenon was a moral panic, which, as one researcher put it in 2017, involved hundreds of accusations that devil-worshipping pedophiles were operating America's white middle-class suburban daycare centers. A 1994 article in the New York Times stated that, of the more than 12,000 documented accusations nationwide, investigating police were not able to substantiate any allegations of organized cult abuse. The National Center on Child Abuse and Neglect conducted a study led by University of California psychologist Gail Goodman, which found that among 12,000 accusations of ritual or religious-linked abuse, There was no evidence for a well-organized intergenerational satanic cult, although there was convincing evidence of lone perpetrators or couples who say they are involved with Satan or use the claim to intimidate victims. One such case Goodman studied involved grandparents who had black robes, candles, and Christ on an inverted crucifix, and the children had chlamydia, a sexually transmitted disease, in their throats, according to the report by the case's district attorney. The evidence for SRA was primarily in the form of testimonies from children who made allegations of SRA and adults who claimed to remember abuse during childhood that may have been forgotten and recovered during therapy. With both children and adults, no corroborating evidence has been found for anything except pseudo-Satanism, in which the satanic and ritual aspects were secondary to and used as a cover for sexual abuse. Despite this lack of objective evidence, and aided by the competing definitions of what SRA actually was, proponents claimed SRA was a real phenomenon throughout the peak and during the decline of the moral panic. Despite allegations appearing in the United States, Netherlands, Sweden, New Zealand, and Australia, no material evidence has been found to corroborate allegations of organized cult-based abuse that practices human sacrifice and cannibalism. Though trauma specialists frequently claimed the allegations made by children and adults were the same, in reality, the statements made by adults were more elaborate, severe, and featured more bizarre abuse. In 95% of the adults' cases, the memories of the abuse were recovered during psychotherapy. Movies from the 1970s like The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, and The Omen heavily influenced the satanic panic of the 80s, as patients in recovered memory therapy often recalled scenes from these films instead of actual events. The public's familiarity with the imagery of satanic cults and rituals depicted in horror films contributed to the mass hysteria surrounding the satanic panic. Conversely, some films from the period also directly influenced the aesthetics and rituals of actual satanic groups. Then, in the 80s, the popularity of role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons, as well as the rise of heavy metal music and slasher films, contributed to this panic. Since the 80s, satanic panic has been portrayed in movies and television, including shows like Stranger Things and movies like Satanic Panic, Trick or Treat, Mazes and Monsters, and the documentary Hail Satan. While the satanic panic of the 80s has been largely discredited, does this mean the record's been set straight? Or is the devil's greatest trick convincing you that he doesn't exist?